Welcome. Welcome to another episode of The Impact of AI. For this week's episode, my name's Melissa Drew, and I'll be your host. Today, we have joined with us Adriano Garibotto. He is the board member and co-founder of a company called Creactives. This company has been around for probably since about 2002. And what's unique about this company is, yes, it deals with spend analytics, and we've probably heard a lot about that in the industry over the years. But this company has been able to continue to evolve how it utilizes and manipulates data, pulling in the most current technologies, AI technologies, neural networks, and predictive analytics to really take spend analytics to the next level. So today, Adriano, I have you here to invite you to talk to us a little bit more about your company, but more specifically, what you're doing today that really elevates Creactives to something a little bit different than what we're seeing in the rest of the industry. Welcome.
Thank you, Melissa, for the opportunity, and thank you for having me. So we are working hard from a long time here in the space of the spend analytics, and from 2015 we have massively introduced artificial intelligence, because from the very beginning of our history we maintain all the time this fact that if you want to be effective, you need to be granular. What that means that granularity, so high quality on the categorization and high details are the most powerful tools that the procurement has to really get the savings and the expected evolution of the supply chain on the targets that they are willing to have in the short-term period and in the long-term period. So quality of the data is the enabler factor for any kind of these activities. And we maintain that the traditional top-down approach that most of the companies that are playing in this market are providing is not the right one. The best way to have this high quality data is the bottom-up approach. So starting from the line, from what you really buy. So if I would say a way of saying is like normally the normal approach is from whom you buy, how you buy, and then what. This process is the normal one. We transform this process in what you buy, from whom you buy, and how. And starting from the what, you get more clarity about a lot of things, because the detail is where sits the real meaning of the initiatives that you can get. Think about, for example, the situation of your supplier base. All of them has been categorized top-down, so whom, etc., etc. And this categorization is normally so generic that initiatives like exploit as much as possible your supplier base are not so effective, even with a totally new source-to-pay platform, because the data you have put in is wrong. So the supplier base generically categorized drives to initiatives of RFX where you are inviting people that are not really able to answer to your RFX process, and maybe you are missing to invite people that are really good and can support you. But you are missing the fact that you do not know the detail, and the detail is in the line level. What has transformed this place dramatically in the last 5 years? The introduction of the artificial intelligence, making possible that the approach that was supposed to be a quick win, so whom, how, and what, this approach was promoted like a quick win approach. So you can do quickly, and then you can find an opportunity, and that's it. And by the contrary, yes, it's a very good approach, the detail, etc. But it takes a lot of time, takes a lot of effort, cannot be done because it's a long project. Right now, with the artificial intelligence, is a game changer. Is the disruption about that, because we can know the what and the whom and the how very quickly as the other approach. but with the advantage that from the very beginning, we know the necessary details that are needed to really implement solutions. This is
Right.
about the game changer here.
Yeah. So I don't want to, I don't want you to have to tell me about any secret sauce, you know, but I would like to take some of what you said and help us understand why it's a game changer for you. How are you utilizing these technologies to really change the way you're classifying and enriching that data?
Well, the approach of what and then whom and then how is an approach that is based on the fact that you can really know a lot of important information about industrial components, services in the industrial space, etc., that are things that are repeated over different clients. Because when you speak about an industry like could be oil and gas industry, they use the same bearing that is used in an automotive industry or is used in another industry. So there is a big effect that we have, let me say, create a treasure, creating a knowledge base about industrial and components and services related to the industries that are in common with many industries. So when our artificial intelligence model started the journey to a new implementation, it doesn't start from scratch. So it's not the traditional approach you have with many artificial intelligence projects. So the algorithm is there, is empty, and the algorithm try to understand your data and try to start building a model from your data and nothing else. Our approach is different. We have collected a lot of knowledge in the last 15 years. This knowledge is the base, and we built only on top. And building on top make the process dramatically efficient from the time needed from the client side of contribution, sorry, from the client side, because the contribution from the client side is limited only to the novelties that are peculiar to that specific client. All the companies, they speak their own jargon. They are part of the knowledge that is only in the mind of the readers. And you cannot retrieve this knowledge from the data. There is no magic possible. So you need someone that explains to you that this way of says has a specific meaning inside of that company. So the artificial intelligence can be deployed in another way that is very, let me say, innovative. Most of the discussions around artificial intelligence are related with the fact that you need to have good data to train the artificial intelligence. And this is a big topic because when you have to deal with 1 million of material master data to deal with, how do you be sure that you're using right data? So going line by line in 1 million of data is impossible. So we have found a way that the identification of the outliers, the identification of the things that are not good can be done by the artificial intelligence itself. So the artificial intelligence, what that makes, that analyze the data, identify the outliers, the things that's supposed to be wrong, that the system cannot understand, compress them in an example that is a sort of representative maybe of 1,000, 2,000 or 10,000 lines. And by answering one single question by the client that knows his knowledge, answering that, automatically you fix the problem of 10,000 lines. And then you have this incredible situation where the contribution of in the training of the artificial intelligence from the client side is reduced to few days. And the rest is done automatically or with our knowledge engineering platform. But it's something that do not need the contribution of the client. And so this is a critical part of the story because it's quite different from the normal approach that is out there.
So there's a lot that you've said that we need to unpack. For example, I'm a user of some of these other spend analytics tools that you're, you know, that you're comparing yourself against. And I am familiar that when I go in, or when someone I know goes in and classifies their data, or when the engine is classifying their data, they're being asked to review that data over a course of 2 weeks. And they're being asked to go through, you know, a line by line, oftentimes filtering the data based on medium importance or medium confidence, and then asking, you know, everybody to go line by line and reclassify it. And then that saves it as a rule, and, you know, et cetera. But what I heard from you is that what you're doing is you're trying to minimize the interaction of the individual and harness the power of the AI technologies. So yes, you are asking the, you know, your client to validate, because they, you know, and I think you've highlighted that really well. Everybody has a very unique perspective of calling something different, even though it might be the same thing. So what I'm hearing you say is, instead of you guys manipulating data for 2 weeks, and instead of asking the client to manipulate the data for another 2 weeks on top of that, the power of what you've been able to create consolidates this into almost kind of like a wizard, where me as the individual or your customer sees a couple questions, answers a couple questions, that's representative. It utilizes the technologies behind it. And what I heard you say is you can minimize that interaction down to a couple of days, not, you know, months or weeks.
Exactly.
Okay.
And
That's really good. That's great.
and I would I add another thing, that
Mhm.
you do not need to have any expertise in data science or Python or whatever. You need only to know what you are buying.
Mhm.
So contribution is only related with knowledge that the people knows, their own knowledge, without any additional effort from try to understand a system, etc. Because the system interact with the end user, the contribution of the client side, in a what we call a sort of trivial pursuit approach. Okay,
Mhm.
so it's like, you know, the game Trivial Pursuit. I don't know if in US it's the same name. So you have a card, you have a question, and you have 4 options. You know, and we have reproduced it exactly the same. So this item that is described in this way should belong to this category, or this other category. And only by selecting one of them, automatically the algorithm updates itself.
That makes it really easy.
And this makes
Yeah.
it incredibly easy also to collect information in very complex environments. So think about a
Mhm.
client of ours that is AB InBev, the biggest producer of beer around the world. We are speaking about more than 150 breweries around the world using 11 different backend system, ERP system, SAP, and they are using inside of the system more than 12 languages. And obviously, we are speaking about master data, material master data, so pieces that are in the warehouses there. And most of them are recorded in the local language. And the people that have to make the contribution are people that are local, and they have no clue about English, or they have a limited clue about English, but they're really able to answer the question in their local language. What that means that in this category, this category, this category in your local language, so in Korean or in Chinese or in Ukrainian. And by answering that, the magic is that we are not only updating the model for the Ukrainian, but we are also updating the model for the Portuguese guys that are working in Brazil, or the US-based the breweries that they have many in the US speaking different kind of English, I mean, because this is the reality. So making possible a sort of democratization of the extraction of the artificial intelligence. So you can achieve 95% of precision in the model from the historical data perspective classification, but this model will be able to yes, to make automatic categorization also of the future data. Because whenever the model is set obviously you are in the same business, you will use the same concepts, and the system will be able to understand the new concepts that are coming. And so in that way, every time you make a selection, also during the utilization of the master data, every time an item has been created new with the support of the artificial intelligence, the model behind will be automatically updated. So the sort of crowd learning, learning from the crowd of the user internally and learning from the crowd of the user globally. So we customize the model, and then the model itself maintains himself aligned with the evolution of the usage.
So I'm going to step back and go to the very beginning of the process, and then we'll walk our way, through end to end. The data, collecting the data. You mentioned that you've been collecting data for over 15 years. Are you collecting data because you have folks out there collecting data from the industry, or is this solely only data that you've collected from previous customers? How are you collecting your data? Where's it coming from?
We do not collect data. We collect knowledge to
Got
understand.
it.
And this is a big difference, because at the end of the day, what we sell is a model, is an algorithm, and there is no data inside.
Understand.
This is crucial, because we are not using the data of a previous client to understand the data of a new one, because we don't have any list to match again a new list and say this means that, because we have this long list with all the correct categorization and we try to match one of them. No. For example, to give you a flavor on that, we do not know all the codes that Siemens is using. So Siemens has more than 100,000 different products. So with more than 100,000, obviously, Siemens codes. We not know all of them. We know the pattern of the code of Siemens. So the model is able to recognize that this sequence of letters and numbers is a Siemens code, even if it's not written Siemens anywhere, and even if that code is completely new because it's related to a product that has been put in the market yesterday.
Got
so
it.
The magic here is that the artificial intelligence model is collecting knowledge, is not collecting data.
That's a good clarification. Thank you.
And this makes a total difference here. Huh?
It does, because I think everybody, whenever we think about a company that is doing spend analytics, and you've even just highlighted that it's not just spend, it's materials master and really any data analytics, that you're not collecting data and have this huge database from every customer you've ever talked to. What you've highlighted, and I like the way you worded it, was you're really developing knowledge, a knowledge base around being able to take someone's data, anyone's data, regardless of where it comes from. And this knowledge base with these AI technologies is the value of your product and service.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And by the way, there is another element that makes possible to, for example, share a concept. So if you, for example, you select a categorization using a standard taxonomy like UNSPSC. So it's a trend topic today, because also some big platforms are adopting UNSPSC as a standard categorization. So, and you have this typical problem of the mapping. So when it's a very technical thing, but at the end of the day, is a sort of Rosetta Stone. So where you have to map your system to categorize things to the UNSPSC standard, and so you have this stupid situation, let me say in that way, where at the end of the day, because the relation between the taxonomies are not one-to-one, but are one-to-n or something like that, you need to choose one of them. So you are introducing an error because lack of knowledge, okay?
So I actually used to be a member of the unspsc.org. And at one time, there were over 90,000 nodes in the UNSPSC. And as a part of that membership, I learned, which I was a bit surprised, but the UNSPSC.org, the version changes. At any point in time, their membership can vote to remove a node, add a node, rename a node, or completely reclassify the numerical structure of the node. So that makes it, I think, even more challenging with specifically what you're highlighting.
Yeah, absolutely. But if you have artificial intelligence that is really able to understand the concept, the taxonomy is a consequence. So that the artificial intelligence model understand that this is a bidding, but not because there is a category that is called bidding, because it's a bidding itself. The nature of the item has, in which way is described, allows the artificial intelligence to say is a bidding. Put this bidding in mechanical component, very generic, because you have a taxonomy that is very poor and you are not interested in details about bidding, and you put all the things in mechanical components. Or put that bidding very specific in a category that is ball bidding, single row ball bidding, is a thing that is possible because the artificial intelligence know that is this type of bidding. Then the categorization is completely independent with no mapping between the two concepts. Why is so crucial that? Because you can jump from one system to another system without any big impact in your environment. So to give you a flavor on that, you have Spend Analytics tool, and you have a very granular categorization in the Spend Analytics tool. That not means that you need to reflect this categorization inside of your ERP system, because change the taxonomy in your ERP system could be a major problem. But if you have an independent way to categorize that is not mapping, etc., and the artificial intelligence can do independently, you can have the right categorization in your backend system and the right categorization in your Spend Analytics system, and you can use both. So the power of the artificial intelligence in that sense is incredibly higher if you change your mind. So it's a click, because we are so used to think in the way that the incumbents have defined the technology, okay? Because here the incumbents, and we know who they are, okay, have defined the way of thinking, have defined the way of do things based on the limitations of their own technology.
Understand? Yep.
And we are all convinced that this is the only way to do so, but it's not true. There are ways that can change the play.
I think that's a very valid observation. I think what I'm hearing is that specifically, 5 years ago, or roughly, utilizing AI technologies really allowed your company to take something foundational and completely really just flip it upside down, is what I'm hearing. Yeah. No, it's quite innovative. When we talked about data, I've heard you talk about procurement data, spend data, master data, catalog data, direct materials, MRO. You've talked about pulling data from multiple different systems with different categorizations, and really utilizing your tool is that crux in the middle that creates that. What I'm hearing is it's creating that central point where it can. And tell me if I'm using the wrong terms, but it's harmonizing the data.
Absolutely correct.
Okay.
Absolutely. Harmonizing is the correct data, because it means implicitly that you do not only categorize the things, but you are also able to act on the data, enriching the data. So for example, when I'm able to capture from an unstructured information, like could be a description like, I don't know, screw M16 per 20 and DIN 931, okay, and very cryptic. You have to have a knowledge in your mind to understand what is written there, okay. And the artificial intelligence can tell you, okay, look, no mind, this is a socket screw following the DIN 391, and the 16 mean a diameter, the 12 means a length, and expressed in millimeters. And all this information can be captured, normalized in specific fields, and used to aggregate information. This is real harmonization. because you are really making possible that data coming from different systems suddenly appears to be the same, not because you have transformed the description, because the description maybe remains the original one, but you have really understood the nature of that item by capturing metadata, normalize them, and put in fields that can be used for aggregations. And aggregation is one of the tools that you have in any kind of system to understand volumes, to compare things, to understand how much I use of 12 millimeters diameter screws whenever I use it, where and how, etc., etc. This all depends on the fact that you have captured this metadata and you put this metadata as a key enabler factor for aggregations. And this is what we call harmonization here.
What about the context of the data? And let me give you an example, specifically utilizing grammar. So the example I'll give you is three lines. I'm buying a printer, I'm buying paper for my printer, or I'm buying a paper tray for my printer. I mean, each one of those used the word paper, but what I was buying was different based on the context of the rest of the words that was around that.
This is a very good question because allows me to explain very crucial differentiator about a model of artificial intelligence that includes natural language processing and so every kind of activity that is only related with the capture of keywords will fail. Because we do not express this, the human interaction is not based on keywords. We express using the language, and the language is about semantic. It's about conjunction between words. It's about sequence of the word. It's about connection between the words, okay? And so if you do not have a system that is able to interpret the natural language instead of the keywords, you will fail. Because you cannot recognize the difference between a paper tray than a paper print. And this is all about the quality of the artificial intelligence again. So you need to have this kind of model behind that is able to understand this and is able to understand in the natural language are used inside of that specific description. Because one of the big differentiators between us and the rest of the world, and I can tell you right now that is probably the biggest differentiator in terms of data preparation, is that all the companies that I know, as far as I know, they need to make a massive translation of the data to English before using any kind of algorithm on the data.
Okay.
So you need to translate the data to English, and then the process can start with some algorithm that can make some learning processes and so on and so forth. But when you speak about 1 million of material master data, you cannot use a manual approach, obviously. You need to use an automatic approach. So you can apply Google Translator or some other translator. But as you know, those kind of translators are built to translate human interactions. So phrases in the natural language. So our training in books, our training using novels, our training using papers, our training using magazines and so on so far are not trained using chunk of descriptions contained pieces of codes and names of producer, the typical information you can get in a 40 characters digit of the description of a material master data. And when you make it an automatic translation applying to this kind of information, what you are really doing is introducing more script data. Because the translation to English is script data at the end of the day. So if you to give you a stupid example, but many times you can find an abbreviation of screw in Spanish, like tornillo. This is the complete naming, like torn, T-O-R-N, and nothing else. Okay. okay, and dot, and nothing else. So if you apply an automatic translator to English with this information, I can assure you, you will never get a screw as a translation.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, if you don't get a screw, how you can classify it, how you
Right.
can harmonize it. So, and this happens continuously. And for sure, you cannot do another interest part of the story that artificial intelligence developed in the way we have developed makes possible. So understand the implicit meaning, not only the explicit meaning. So if I tell you A4 and the supplier is an Audi dealer, you argue immediately that is a model of car. But if the supplier is a supplier of office supply, you can argue that A4 means a size of paper.
True.
You know?
Yep.
So, and this is something that our brain does automatically because we put in conjunction different sources of information to provide meaning to something that seems to be cryptic and domain specific. But using artificial intelligence in the same way, you really get the same result. And this is not possible if you make massive translation like that, because you introduce in a lot of errors and then you do not get what you want.
So I think what I just heard was that by applying AI technologies, you're reducing the human bias.
Absolutely.
Which is interesting because out in the industry, everyone's talking about how we need to ensure that utilizing AI technologies doesn't add, unknown biases or known and unknown biases. But yet here, I think it's quite intriguing that you've created this very, I can't think of the words, but you've created a very intelligent argument that actually utilizing the AI technologies is augmenting our human way of thinking, but also changing that so that we're not accidentally adding human biases into how we explore and think about the data.
Exactly.
Okay.
Absolutely. And if I may, the point is that people are concerned. Many times I have this question, but magic, but my data is so bad. And I'm not sure that even with your magic, the system will work. And the answer is you have to deal with, because there is no good data. And let me say, the average quality of the data is bad everywhere. Okay, so it's not. So in this case, the people tends to be very critic to her own. Okay, and they say, I have worse data than any other. My case is a dramatic case. I know that I have very bad data. So probably you have done this magic somewhere else because they have good data. No, the data is bad everywhere. And the reasons are related with, as I said before, with the technology of the incumbents, okay? But the technology, our technology and any kind of technology should have the possibility to deal with that data, because you cannot wait to create good data to train a system. You need to use the data available and then use that data and only that data to make possible the good categorization. And this is the global effort we have done in the last 5 years, implementing more and more in our knowledge engineering base, this kind of capability to identify the outliers, provide implicit meaning, try to fix problems that are related with mistakes that are has been recognized as patterns that are repeated and so on and so forth. All these tricks are related to ensure that the bias is possible to recognize it and to fix it to make possible a good training.
Are you implying that as a customer, I don't need to spend a lot of effort to clean my data before I give it to you?
Yeah, we are not asking to the client to do anything with their data.
Okay.
Please make the extraction of the data
just the way it is.
and that's it.
Huh.
We will you for the outliers that we are not able to recognize. But we do not want, and even more, there is a lot of time that the clients say, okay, but I can filter these and then I can provide you. And this is a little bit counterintuitive because we are speaking about artificial intelligence. So more data we have, better it is. So if you want to go to a sense of productivity and cost per item, the cost per item decreased dramatically with the quantity of data. So you can have a relation 1 to 10 in the unit cost of categorization compared with 100,000 items with 1 million of items, okay? So the system is by far more efficient with 1 million of items. So we always say, don't care. Give us all the data, all the data.
As is.
Will have the biggest efficiency if you provide all the data. And by the way, if you go to your data warehouse and you make any kind of filter, those filters are based on fields that are most of the time with a lot of error. So you apply a filter and you probably are losing to extract data that is relevant for you simply because you have an error. So make no sense. Give all the data. And with all the data, we go back with good data.
At the very beginning of the conversation, you mentioned 4 to 5 days. I just want to clarify because I could hear, some of the audience members asking the question, 4 to 5 days for what? What's the process? Is your 4 to 5 days from the time you get the data to the time that you give them the UI questions? What exactly were you quoting when you said 4 to 5 days?
These 45 days are related with whenever the data is in our house, time we need to make the first step, for example, for spend analytics of the categorization. So categorization means apples with apples, pears with pears, using the taxonomy you want. This activity, more or less, 45 days. Okay. From the moment we have the data, so we have the data in our house, and the moment where we are able to categorize the data with the required quality. And obviously, there are other activities that can be done for more complicated tasks. For example, if you are speaking about material master data management, and you do not want only to categorize the data, but you want also to identify the data for finding duplicates and so on and so forth, this requires another additional training. But to give you a flavor, the most complicated project we have delivered never takes more than 6 months. And we are speaking about a project maybe with 5 million of master data.
Across how many languages?
Across 20 languages.
20 languages.
Dozen of different systems, etc. We are speaking about a very, very complex and large project. And in that case, even in that case, we are speaking about 6 months. That in any case is an incredible short period of time.
Wow. When you look at, and we'll wrap this up really shortly, but when you look at your team, so I'd be curious to know how big of a team do you currently have? Because you're not collecting data, which so your team is really focused on the models themselves. Yes. How big of a team do you have?
So we are not many because we are really artificial intelligence.
Got it.
We are another individual somewhere doing things manually, like you mentioned before. Not have any back office somewhere in a low-cost country doing things manually. So we are an Italian company. We are based in Verona. We have an international footprint because today more than 85% of our turnover is outside of Italy. And our clients typically are large companies. And I mean large companies, multinational companies like Siemens, like Danone, like IBM, or like Airbus. So complex companies, etc. This is our footprint in terms of clients. And we are a company that is really focused on produce technology. So we are 60 people in Verona, plus people around for sales processes. But those people in Verona are the people that are really managing the algorithm behind and the model. And obviously, as I mentioned before, we have the contribution of the technology. So we have this thing about the crowd learning. So the people that are using our system are sending, even if they don't know, they are sending feedbacks to the model, updating the model, making possible that the model update itself with the evolution of the usage that the people do around the world.
Mm-hmm. So we're going to wrap up. One last question. As you look towards the future, knowing that you're focused, knowing that the footprint that you have is globally, you're looking at direct, indirect data, really any data. There's no, specific limitation.
Yeah.
Where do you see you guys going next?
Well, we want to be central. There is a colleague of you that is Eloise Epstein, yes?
Mm-hmm.
And I created a sort of map where at the center of the map, there is the master data of the suppliers.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? Supplier master data is at the center, and there is connection towards any kind of different application, even to us. So we are part of that map. And so we want to be vice versa. We want to be at the center because we are able to provide good material and service master data to anyone. We are able to provide good and cleansed and harmonized material and services master data or spending data to any third-party spend analytics tool, to a source-to-pay platform, to a system that makes possible to categorize better the supplier. So we imagine ourselves as producer of good data for any good data of material and service good data, where I want to be clear here, we are not working on the space of the vendor data management, for example. Mm-hmm. Material and services master data, this is our job that requires a higher specialization, but we want to be at the center of this spider chart, providing data to anyone that needs good data in that space.
I think that's a wonderful. I think that's exactly where you guys should head. Everybody should have a goal. I think that's a wonderful goal. Yes. Well, Adriano, our time's come to an end, but thank you so much. I know you've mentioned you're calling me from Italy, so it's end of the day for you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you again for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Ellen.
Bye.